Thank you, Sandy. This is Dr. David Schein. I'm a professor, I'm an attorney, I'm a consultant, and I'm also an author. And I get to do a lot of different things. And one of my long-term interests has been the future of America. And they say those who cannot remember history are doomed to repeat it. And so I wanted to make a point with my book. There's a lot of false information out there about the success or failures of the American presidents. The book covers Wilson through Obama. A couple real quick examples. Wilson is often revered as a great statesman and a great thinker, and frankly, he was a failure in office, and he was an overt racist. One of the other drivers of the book is Franklin Roosevelt, who many of our parents and our grandparents' generation revered as the winner of World War II and the solver of the Great Depression. And both of those statements are false. The United States was never going to lose World War II. His late entry into the war, just as Wilson's late entry into World War I, cost a great deal of Allied lives and cost a great deal of American lives and assets because they failed to act when they should have.
Thank you very much, David. So in doing this book and writing the book, as you said, you cover every president from Woodrow Wilson to Barack Obama. And you have the same criteria, the same questions for each one of them. And then you tell how they stack up against, or how they, how that relates to them. And then they all get a grade. So tell us about the research you did and how you came up with the grades.
Yes. So each president was evaluated on their management ability. And even though I made reference to history as part of the concept of the book, is that history was used to tell a management story. The United States is a complex economy with millions of people and a very successful economy even today. And so part of the principle there is to tie actual facts rather than just opinions. And so we did a lot of research on the state of the economy at different times, different dates when things were done or not done. So management principles were number one. Number two was ethics. And I looked at the ethics of each president, both personally and in terms of how they exercised their management principles. And so we looked at things like racial bias. We looked at things like whether they were faithful to their wives while they were in office. We're also dealing with a problem today of a politicization of history, is that if the person's the right party, then they get a great history book. If they're not popular, they get a terrible history book. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be what it is. And I can't say that I presented my story without bias, but I can tell you that I did my very best to evaluate each president. And there were, by the way, more Republican than Democrat presidents, which is interesting because reportedly there are more Democrats than Republicans in the United States. But the numbers were 8 Democrats and 9 Republicans. And then with Donald Trump, that would make the 10th Republican since Woodrow Wilson.
Wow, that's interesting. It is interesting. And I know that you did not do all the research yourself. You had researchers. So that, yeah. I think that also helps to make it more of a non-biased, report. It's a report, basically, on the presidents. And this is a presidential election year. So in about 6 months, we're all going to be going to the polls. Hopefully everyone will go and voting. So how can we use your book between now and then? And I do want to say that because we believe that your book would be a great resource for anyone that wants to make a truly objective vote in November. So we are going to make the book available, the ebook, for 99 cents for starting June 1st. And when we put out the recording, when we launch the recording on that date, then we'll give you a link also to go directly to Amazon and buy the book for 99 cents. And so you want, as the author, people to use this book to help them evaluate what we want in a president. So talk about that for a few minutes.
Sure. Well, people reading my book can see the analysis that was done, the factual things that happened while each president was in office, and to look a little deeper, to try and look at better sources. One of the things that I studiously tried to do in the book and with my researchers is to find objective facts, is to find hardcore material from more neutral sources. So we deliberately tried not to use things from very far left publications and very far right publications, to really focus on mainstream publication. So I think that's a good tip for the American public, is to really evaluate the source of the information they have. Now, in the present presidential election, the likely candidate, and of course we have not had the convention yet, is Donald Trump for the Republicans and Joe Biden for the Democrats. Biden was in the Senate for a very long time. He has made many, many speeches. He's been a fairly visible person. Then he was vice president, and he has been very visible since then. And I think people can very fairly evaluate what he accomplished or did not accomplish. Donald Trump's a little bit different because he is one of the first people ever to achieve such high political office, the highest in the land, without having ever held another position in office. That's an extremely unusual situation. But a lot of the criticism of Trump has been based on some of his business policies. One of them in particular is that some of the building projects that he's been involved with have gone bankrupt. And while that is legally permissible, each business that a business person sets up can be incorporated separately, and if it goes bankrupt, well, the creditors to that business lose, but the person can go on and start other businesses. And so there's been some hard feelings about that. I know a number of people have mentioned some hard feelings about the fact that foreign dignitaries have stayed in some hotels that Trump owns. But in terms of evaluating what he's done during the 3.5 years he's been in office, a lot of the discussion is centered on, at this moment, what will the economy do over the next 5 months before the election? And I think that's going to be very telling.
Okay, good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is not in the book. Even this about the election, it's not in the book. What we want you to do is get this book. We believe, David believes, I believe, the whole team, that this book can help you. I love what you said, David, that when you're doing the research, look to see who wrote it. Is it somebody that's on the far left or somebody on the far right? Then you know anything they say is going to be at least slightly biased, because we can't help it. We can't help but mention what we believe. So the book will be for you to look at, and you won't be able to evaluate Trump or Biden. You will just evaluate former presidents, and using that information and that knowledge to help you make a totally, or as much as possible, unbiased opinion when you vote. So what's in the future for you as far as books?
Sure. We're working on a book that looks at some objective issues, like how much we're paying our members of Congress, how long they've been in Congress, and some of the things that they've talked about while they were in Congress. And I'm also working on a book too that's kind of a sequel to The Decline of America, a book regarding some of the great public failures that we've had. And one that immediately comes to mind is Katrina. We'll probably have more than one chapter on COVID-19. One of the very vivid things that we're dealing with regard to COVID-19 is that there was a shortage of respirators, and yet the respirators were something that should have been replaced following the last health crisis. Also, that we have allowed the United States to become incredibly dependent on China. And China is a unique relationship. I have co-authors in China. I know many students and grad students from China. I think that the Chinese people and the American people are very close together. We're hard workers, we respect diversity, and we respect uh, hard work overall in contribution, and I respect education. I think it's important for us to segregate our concerns about administrative policies of the Chinese government from the Chinese people. But I also think that it is foolish for the United States, as productive as we are, to not have enough medication in the United States because it's all made overseas. And I think that's a failure of government to have allowed that to happen. And so these are the types of things that I'll be writing about in the near future.
Well, look forward to that book. Those books, you have two you're working on,
Right.
and you're doing the research, same as we did with the Decline of America. You're doing research, and you have researchers helping you, so it's not just David's research, it's a research team. I love
Yes.
that. But in the meantime, this book, The Decline of America, 100 Years of Leadership Failures. Again, a textbook, not a novel. It's a textbook with certain criteria that was met and a grade. Each president was given a grade. And David, did any of the presidents make an A?
No, the highest rated president was Harry Truman. Harry Truman, the only person in the last 100 years who did not have a college degree. I thought that was kind of interesting, but he had a lot of common sense. And sometimes one of the things we overlook is just plain common sense, like having drugs made in the United States that are critical for the health and safety of Americans. That's just common sense. That doesn't require a PhD to say, gee, we probably ought to be making that stuff at home.
Very good. So look for the book. We'll be promoting on June 1st, the day it goes live for 99 cents. And it will be there for a week or so. We're not sure exactly how long our publisher is going to let us keep it at 99 cents. But for now, at least 1 week. So you have some time to get it. Stay tuned. And David, I think what we'll do is some more interviews when we get to June 1st, and maybe even do a Facebook Live on June 1st, so we can just let you announce to the world that you're going to give this book away for 99 cents. I mean, less than $1. Ridiculous. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the retail price of the book is $17.99. Amazon has been selling the hard copy of the book for a little less than that. I think they've been selling the Kindle for around $7 a download.
I think so, yeah, $7.99 even, I think.
And so for 99 cents, that's a heck of a deal. And we hope a lot of people will participate in that, and maybe some of them will then decide to buy the hard copy.
Very good. So thank you, David. Thank you for your gifts that you give. I know you've been giving a lot towards small businesses in Houston during this whole COVID-19 pandemic. And so thank you for that. And we look forward to seeing you live next time.
Thank you again, Sandy. Take care now. Bye-bye.